Hi there, friends. I wanted to hop on and just make a video really quick for anyone that wasn't able to attend our team huddle. This might be a little bit long, but I want to go through some changes we're making to our small group setup. And really, we're hoping that these changes will just help the flow of the room. It'll help you guys to get a rhythm every week, and it'll help the kids to just kind of fall into that rhythm. They'll get used to what's happening next, they'll know what's expected of them, and make things a little bit easier in the classrooms. We are going to be starting this new rhythm for our small groups this weekend. So it's really important that we go over it just so you have the idea in your head of what's going to happen. To be honest, it's fairly simple and really straightforward, but I know it'll take kind of a learning curve. There's a little bit of some transitions and things that might take us a minute to kind of get used to over the next few weeks, and that's totally fine. I totally expect us to kind of have to adjust as we go, see what works and doesn't work. So that being said, I want to show you guys what you'll be seeing every week. This is going to be the plan that you'll get for the classrooms so that you know exactly what's happening. We're going to start looking at that very first table where it says drop-off activities. And what you'll see there is that we'll always have 3 drop-off activities. One that is a game or some kind of toy to play with. One that's the coloring or craft activity for them. And the last one being some sort of either game, large motor activity, something that's a little more intensive in your time. Maybe it may be a little more intensive in your instruction. So that game or toy, that will be something that stays the same all month long. So for this month, you can always expect to have charades or Pictionary available to you at a table. And by that, I really mean a whiteboard and a marker for if you want to do Pictionary, and charades you can do on your own. It'll be very simple layouts for these drop-off activities. Hopefully, the idea is that anyone could see the word charade or see the word Pictionary and know exactly what to do when they walk up to that table. So that will stay the same for the entire month, and that's one of the options for a drop-off activity. The second one is the coloring or the craft, and this for the month will be just coloring sheets that are story related. So it'll just be those coloring sheets that you usually see that we have that relate to the story that we're talking about that week. Now on different months, this might look something different, like butchered paper on the tables that they get to color all over, or something maybe a little more fun and creative. But the idea is that, again, for the entire month, it'll be pretty much the same. So you know what to expect week in and week out when you show up in the classroom. Now that last activity, that one is going to be something a little more fun, a little more engaging for the kids. And the idea behind that is that it kind of gets their attention back. It's another way that you can just engage with them in a different way. This one is going to be balloon races, where there's a straw on a string and the balloon is taped to the straw, and you're blowing air into it and then letting them go and letting them race across the room. One idea for how you do drop-off is that you have all these activities out at one time, and you just let kids go from activity to activity, which is totally fine. This is pretty much how we've been doing drop-off, and if that's what works for your room, that's great. You can keep doing that. But if you're finding that kids are just losing interest quickly, it's not buying up their time. You're needing a little bit more something to do with them in that drop-off time. What you can do is have those first 2 activities out, a coloring sheet and the game out for them to do. And then when you notice those kids that are just uninterested in anything else that's going on and kind of are just not really as involved as they were at the beginning, then you can decide to actually take out that 3rd activity and have the whole classroom join you in doing it together. That way you're kind of pulling their attention to something new and different, and then if you still have time, you could send them back to coloring, and honestly they'll be more engaged in that again because they got that mental break of doing something different and fun. So that's one way to do it as well. Again, that'll be totally up to you every week on how you want to do drop-off activities. One thing I do want to point out is that our goal is to always have a leader or a helper, someone that is sitting at the table doing those activities with them. So instead of just having kids sitting at a table coloring, we want to have a teacher or a leader or someone that is available at the table having conversation with them, drawing different kids into the group as well. So when we have those kids that just aren't sure if they want to be in the room or maybe are newer, we can easily walk them up and say, look, Miss Sarah is coloring this coloring sheet. Do you want to join her? And Sarah's already there coloring, engaging with the kids, and it's really easy to get the kid involved with them from there. So that's my one note on drop-off. But that's something we've been doing, and so that's not really an adjustment. But those activities, what you'll see is 2 of them are going to stay the same every week, and only the third one is going to change from month to month. So that's our drop-off activities. Now, one more note about drop-off. If you look at the next chart below it, where you see the schedule, there's actually 2 schedules. There's Schedule A and Schedule B. This is because we're doing 2 different large groups. This is primarily at the 9:30 right now, but I wouldn't be shocked if we have to go to 2 large groups at the 11 as well. So this is to kind of get us ready for in case we do need to do that. So I want to point out to you where it says drop off on that schedule. You'll notice that from 9:15 to 9:35 is the drop off, or 10:45 to 11:05. This is important because we've been starting large group 10 minutes into service. We are actually going to start doing large group 5 minutes into service. A couple of reasons for that. One being we aren't having enough time to do 2 large groups when we're starting that late. The second group usually doesn't have very much time in small group after their large group. And so we want to create time for them to have a good small group after the large group setting. So we're going to start a little bit earlier to kind of create a little cushion for them. But also it gives parents kind of this maybe a little bit of a red flag when they show up really late and their child is already in the small group room or the large group room. It's like, hey, oh, wait a minute, my kid's already supposed to be in there. I'm late. And it's not that we want to make parents feel bad, but we do see oftentimes at the 11 o'clock more than the 9:30, parents that kind of mosey up and are, taking their time. Kids kind of take their time getting into class, and it just disrupts the flow of the room when we have kids coming in that late. And by that late, I really mean like 15, 20 minutes late sometimes. So to have that be kind of on their radar a little more is one reason that we're going to be doing that. And it'll just kind of remind the parents of that little nudge of, oh yeah, my kid is going to be missing out on stuff if I don't get there on time. Another thing about that drop-off time I want to point out, if you see on the far right side, it says at 9:30 cleanup time, or for the 11, it would be 11 cleanup time. We want to implement this going forward. Anytime that you guys do any sort of activity, craft or the drop-off activities, we want you guys to have that 5-minute buffer of telling the kids it's time to clean up. So that means we're going to all pick up the crayons and put them in the box. We're going to all put our coloring sheets in our bags. We're going to all do something where we're cleaning up the room. We're getting it ready. What we're seeing is that teachers are having to mad dash around the room, get everything in order for the next activity, and then run to large group. And we want to eliminate that. We want to make it a really easy transition. And to be honest with you, most kids enjoy that kind of transition. They might gripe and moan, a few of them might gripe and moan about having to clean up, but it's a good signal in their brain that we're moving to the next thing rather than the stop what you're doing, we got to go to large group. Instead of doing that, we want to shift it towards a transition. So this is where you're going to start to see kind of those rhythms and that flow of the morning kind of be implemented, because those things that register in their brain that, okay, this means it's time for the next thing, help kids to really get the groove of how things go. One thing I would suggest is actually setting an alarm for that time, for 9:30, for 11 o'clock, so that your phone goes off and it's, oh, the alarm is going off. That means it's time to clean up, rather than you having to say, oh, it's 9:30, stop what you're doing, clean up. First of all, it makes the alarm the bad guy and not you the bad guy. But second of all, for those kids where transitions are hard for them, an alarm or something like that can really be a good way for them to know, that's right, we're going to something else now. So that's one suggestion I have for you in that area. Now, the rest of the schedule breakdown. If you peek at the top of those schedules, you have pre-K, blue room, and green room for Schedule A, kindergarten and red room for Schedule B. These are obviously going to be a little slightly different. We're going to go over the Schedule A, but it's all similar things for Schedule B as well. It's just a little bit different order. So for Schedule A, they'll go to the large group room 5 minutes into service. After the large group room, they'll take a bathroom break. We want you guys to take a whole class bathroom break. This might feel like a big deal and it might feel like a little much, but first of all, pre-K kindergarten rooms, you know that you are sending kid after kid after kid out to the bathroom, and it's one, kind of wasting your time, but two, it's a little tedious when you have 5 different kids that need to go to the bathroom at 5 different times, or someone says it and now everybody wants to run out of the room to go to the bathroom. Having this designated time for a bathroom break will put in their mind, it's time for me to go to the bathroom now, but also it gives you the opportunity to say, we're all going together. We don't need to do 10 different bathroom breaks, and have that one group all go at the same time. Part of this is that honestly, it does take up a little more time during the hour. So rather than having to keep doing stuff with, say, 10 kids in the room while you're sending one to the bathroom, it's a whole pause for the whole class. And to stand out and wait for their friends to come out of the bathroom is not going to kill them for a few minutes. It'll be totally fine. One concern with this that we had last night at our team huddle was that the blue and green rooms would be going to the bathroom at the same time. One of my thoughts on this is that we will have to work on the flow here. Honestly, it might be a little bit of a transition. The green room is much smaller than the blue room, so it may be easier for the green room to go immediately to the bathroom while the blue room is in their class. It also might be an easier time to offer a bathroom break to the whole blue room, but not necessarily take all of them to the bathroom. So that's the goal here. We're not making every kid go to the bathroom, but it is that break, that time where you can say, this is the opportunity to go to the bathroom. And then we're going to go on to a large motor activity for the first schedule, Schedule A. This large motor activity is just a way for the kids to move, to get some energy out, to stand up, shake their legs, shake their arms out, and kind of just have the opportunity to do something different for their morning. These will be taking place in the old story rooms. So for pre-K kindergarten, that would be the old story room on that side of the hallway. For red, blue, and green rooms, it would be the old story room in the EC area. This week, the activity is a popping bubbles kind of game. This whole month is going to have kind of a science theme to it. So we'll actually have someone that is in a lab coat telling the kids that their laboratory is a mess and they need help cleaning it up. And when we go in the room, there'll be 4 or 5 bubble machines on, and the kids can just pop bubbles. So for a good 5-10 minutes, the kids are popping bubbles. They will love it, and they will get so much movement and just get to move around in the room. This is the time for just getting the wiggles out. So think of it as the fun kind of moving activity that they get to do. This is also an opportunity for whoever is leading the classroom to kind of get a mental break. We are not going to have the teachers lead this activity. The desk workers in either side will be the ones that lead this activity. So that being said, the leader, if you need to go take a moment and read over the next activities that you're going to be doing, or if you wanted to set up the room in a specific way, you have that opportunity to step out for a moment and go do that, while the helpers or the assistants in the rooms get to stay in that large motor room with the desk workers. So for the EC side, for red, blue, and green, that large motor activity is going to stay the same all month long. Your kids will not get sick of popping bubbles. So we're going to keep that the same for them. For the pre-K kindergarten side, however, that will change every week. They will probably get bored halfway through the second week if we make them pop bubbles again. So they'll have different activities, different games, different moving things that they'll get to do in that room. And hopefully it'll help you guys to be able to create a space in your classrooms that is much calmer and much more inviting to everyone. The idea is that we take the big, exciting, moving, fun thing and put it in a different room so they know where that's at. And then when we come back to the classroom, the expectations are a much calmer room. From there, that group will go back to their classroom and do the craft activity. We will always have a craft here. Now, the craft will be different. It might be something, it'll change every week, but you'll always know that the first activity we're going to do is a craft. Then the next one is something that is a story retell. I will tell you that for this month, this story retell is probably going to look a little different than how it may look in other months. We are using kind of this science-themed curriculum for this month. And so these are going to be some science experiments where the kids get to watch you do these experiments or help them participate in them, but also using them as a way to retell the story and to reiterate a bottom line. Now for this month, it'll feel like a small group setup almost, like you're getting the kids onto the carpet to sit and listen and interact and have that time. For some of the other months, it might be that the story retell uses the craft that you made to retell the story, or it may be something where they're acting it out and getting to participate in it. But for this month, it'll be more science related, something fun for them to get to experiment with. The third activity will always be the journal and prayer. Now, this will be something that will be a little bit different for the EC rooms, red, blue, green, because you did not always get this in your lesson. But we believe that your kiddos are just as capable of having kind of a small group sit down time. Now, for the green room, this is probably going to look fairly different than what it looks like for the other rooms. So think of this activity, especially for those EC rooms, as something that you can adapt and change and do a little different if you need to. We are not, going to force you to stick to the script of what is going on, but for you guys to have something that you can go off of where you're getting a prayer time in with the kids, you're reiterating the memory verse, and you're asking something that kind of prompts them to think about the story in a way that applies to their life. Like I said, for EC, this may look different, especially that question part, the journal part. This might not be the same as it is for pre-K kindergarten, and that's totally fine. But your kiddos are totally capable of having that small group sit down time. One thing that's really important to us about that time is that those kids feel like they get the chance to talk to the group. So asking a question where everybody gets an opportunity to answer is really important, because not only does it make the kids feel heard by you, but also heard by their friends, and reminds them that everybody in the room is there to care and love for them, not just one person in particular. And kids just like to be heard. So that's why we're doing that in every classroom. And like I said, it'll be another opportunity for you to reiterate the memory verse and to pray with the kids. We want to be sure that we have in every classroom a time of prayer with the kiddos. So that'll be a really important piece. In the past, that has been something that maybe gets cut if there's not enough time or if things are just too chaotic. Our goal is that journal and prayer is what feels like the most important thing in your small group time. That time for those kids to sit down, talk to you, talk to each other will feel like the most valuable thing you do in the rooms. And everything else can be adjusted to make sure that time happens and happens well. So if you need to cut the craft short because you know that when you get to the journal and prayer, you just never have enough time to quite finish it, I'm fine with that. Or if you need to leave the large motor activity room a little early so that you can make sure you have time for the journal and prayer, I'm fine with that. Whatever you need to do to make sure that time is valuable is the most important thing to us. So what you'll see if you look at Schedule B is that that group actually does their craft before the large group. This is yet another kind of transition that I think will be a little bit of an ebb and flow for you guys. The 930 has been doing this for a little while, so they've gotten to practice it quite a bit. But to have that craft, and then also to allow for a little bit of a cleanup time afterwards before you go to large group, will be perfect. Now, the craft activity is written in a way where you can ask questions to reiterate the story again. Obviously, for that group, they haven't heard the story yet. So you'll just have to do that little extra work of tweaking the words that are used in the end of the craft so that you're telling them the story for the first time in a very basic way. Don't feel like you have to get every detail in, but using the craft to kind of depict and explain what they're about to go hear in the large group room will help to get multiple points of the morning where they're hearing the story over and over again. And that's the same for the other group. The point is that they hear the story, the bottom line, and the memory verse multiple times throughout the morning. So all of the activities you'll notice are kind of pointing us back to exactly what we're talking about, the story of the week or the bottom line that we're trying to get across. That is pretty much the breakdown of the schedules. So I'm going to quickly just walk through what the lessons will look like. What you'll see on the first couple of drop-off pages is that those activities are pretty straightforward. You can pick up that paper, read it in 5 seconds, and know exactly what you're going to do. This is a little bit of a difference from the past where it was maybe a little more intricate. You kind of had to read everything on the page to know what you're supposed to do. This will simplify this a lot for us. The only one that's a little more intricate will be that activity one. Like I said, it'll just be something fun that you can do with the room, and you should have plenty of time to read over just one activity versus reading over 3 or 4 in the rooms at the drop-off time. Going down to the craft, I just wanted to point out on the main thing I want to point out, I should say, for these lessons, how they're written right now. This may be something that ebbs and flows. We might see what works and what doesn't work. You'll see you still have that supply list at the top of the page, but then instead of having it broken down by say this and then lower in the page, do this, and then back up to the top, say this and lower, do that. And instead of having it broken down like this, you can actually go straight down this sheet, read where it says say, and then do what it says do, and then move straight down to the next thing. So rather than having to check all over the page for what you're doing and saying at a different time, it'll be all in order for you. So you can read over it really quickly, get a good idea of what you're doing, and then have that in a really easy flow. So you can even just check it as you go to make sure you have that, have all the information that you need. So as you'll see on the craft, that bottom section where there's questions and stuff about the story, obviously for Schedule A, you can keep that just like that, use it as just as it's written. But for Schedule B, you might have to modify it a little bit so that you're the one just kind of telling the kids the story. And that is totally fine. No issue with that at all, obviously. Anytime that you need to tweak or edit the lesson to fit your classroom is totally fine with us. Again, you'll see on that story recap page, it'll be a really simple flow for the morning right there on the paper, all right in order, and hopefully make it a lot easier for you to read quickly. Then down to the journal and prayer, same thing. This obviously will be a little bit more speaking on your end and a little less doing. But one thing I do want to point out about the journal and prayer for this month, since our story retell is really more of them sitting and listening to an activity or listening to you watching the science activity, we wanted to add something where they were getting up and moving one more time before they had to sit still again. So every week this month especially, you'll see just something at the very beginning where they're getting up and doing 10 jumping jacks. They're doing this, they're doing that. They're moving for a little bit and then they can sit back down and you can kind of reconvene the group from there. Like I said, journal and prayer will always be an opportunity to go over the memory verse, and you can repeat that as much as they want to during that time. And then a time to retell the story and have a question that you ask where they're thinking about it in an application piece. And everyone gets the opportunity to give their answers if they would like to. And then a time of prayer. One thing I did not add in the lesson plan but wanted to suggest as well is that you can always ask your kids, does anyone want to pray? And giving them the opportunity to pray in front of the whole group is a really cool thing. When I would lead middle schoolers, they are usually terrified to pray in front of groups. And so practicing even at a really early age to let them pray in front of groups and feel like that's totally comfortable and normal is a really awesome thing to do on a regular basis with them. So giving them the opportunity to pray if they would like to out loud in front of their friends is a really good tool for us. And then you can cap it off and pray at the end. When we would do this we did this in pre-K kindergarten more often in years past, and we would just let any kid that raised their hand pray. And so we would sit there for probably 5 minutes just letting the kids take turns praying, and totally fine with that. It was just a really cool way for them to practice praying in front of their friends as well. So that is everything I have for you. It kind of came at you like a fire hose, but if you have questions or concerns and want to email me before this weekend, please feel free to do that. And I'm attaching this file to the email as well so that you can go through and be sure that you feel equipped and ready for this weekend. Like I said, I totally expect a kind of ebb and flow. We're going to have a little bit of a learning curve where we're figuring things out as we go. And that is totally fine. Please be prepared to be flexible with us so that we can make these weeks work in a good rhythm. We can kind of really develop a really fun and healthy rhythm for our kiddos so that they feel like they know what's happening, they know what's going on, they know what to expect, and it makes things a little more comfortable for them and for you. So thank you guys for watching this, and I will see you this weekend.